All right, everybody, we are now at the Buyer Roadmap Part 3, moving to North Georgia. Well, hey, look, according to Rascal Flatts and Tom Cochran, life is a highway, and I want to ride it all night long, okay? And maybe the highway leads you to North Georgia. All right, so welcome to video number 3 on the Buyer Roadmap, moving to North Georgia. All right, and I know if you have watched the other 2 videos on the Buyer Roadmap, you've got a lot of information to go on. Your eyes might have glazed over a little bit because of some of the in-depth detail we gave you, but there's a reason for that. The reason is we want to make the experience as seamless and as amazing as possible for you, the buyer. All right, so if you don't have maybe 30 minutes to watch part 1 and part 2 of the Buyer Roadmap of moving to North Georgia, and you only got maybe 5 minutes or so, then you can watch this video and I'll summarize everything real quick for you. That way you have a basic idea of what to expect. All right, so the 5 steps of the Buyer Roadmap to moving to North Georgia, we're gonna get into those right now. What is step number 1? Step number 1, I know it sounds pretty basic, but schedule a visit to North Georgia to explore the different areas and decide which area is the best fit for you. A lot of my clients come from Florida or other states, other parts of the country. If you have the ability, I think it would be a very good idea to schedule a weekend trip for a couple of days to come see all the different awesome towns in North Georgia. Because sometimes people think they have an idea of which one they want to live in, and then they go start to visit and they go, wow, you know, I like this one, maybe LJ or Dahlonega or whatever, but I actually saw Gainesville, and Gainesville has everything I need, or Cumming or Dawsonville or whatever. So sometimes your perception of an area changes when you visit, and I think that's a great idea for your first step. Even if you're local to the metro Atlanta area or some other part of Georgia, I still think it's a great idea for you to schedule a visit so you can get a really good feel for the area and which town you might want to identify as your future home. All right, so step 2 is another very important step. We're gonna be setting up your financing in step 2. All right, so what does that mean? That means if you are using a mortgage, you'll need to start to talk to a mortgage lender, get your pre-approval done, get your credit checked, all that good stuff so that we're ready to go and we have a budget set for you. Or if you are paying cash, then paying cash will need a proof of funds letter from your financial institution. Just a letter on bank letterhead or financial institution letterhead that says my client has X amount of dollars to make a purchase in cash for whatever house they choose. Also, during the second step, I'm gonna ask, will you need to sell your current home to make your purchase in North Georgia? This is also a very important question, and I want to make sure I have all the accurate information that I need to make a great offer for you on the house that you ultimately identify as your future home. Now we've gone through step 1 and step 2, and you're probably thinking, surely we're ready to go see some houses now, right? Well, not quite. We got one more thing we've got to take care of before we go see houses in North Georgia. And like I mentioned in the other video, some of the rules are changing because some of the lawsuits that have happened with the National Association of Realtors. And I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to get into all that. All I know is that the rules have changed, and before we go see houses in North Georgia or anywhere else for that matter, we have to sign a buyer brokerage agreement. So the buyer brokerage agreement is going to have some important details in it. It's going to talk about how I'm going to negotiate on your behalf, the time period of the agreement. It's going to also talk about how much I charge for my services, and basically how I'm going to represent you and what I'm going to do to make sure you have the best experience possible. We're not going to get into all the details of the buyer brokerage agreement, or this would be a very long video, but just rest assured that I'll explain the buyer brokerage agreement to you before we sign anything. All right, so now we've got steps 1 through 3 done, and guess what? We are ready to schedule showings and see some houses. So during this phase, what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be setting your criteria: bedrooms, bathrooms, location, budget. We're gonna be talking about other important features like lot size, whether you want a garage, 2-car garage, 1-car garage, basement, square footage, maybe if you have a specific neighborhood that you wanna be in. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take all your criteria, we're gonna plug it into the MLS and start up an auto search for you. And this auto search is going to send you an email, and it's going to send you an email with any matching properties that match exactly what you are looking for. At this point, you'll send a few houses to me that you've identified as potential candidates. All right, and then we'll go set up some showings and look at some houses, which is always so fun. We get to go shopping. All right, you've scheduled a visit to North Georgia, you have set up your financing, and then we've signed our buyer brokerage agreement, and we've actually seen some houses in person. So now that you've identified the perfect house for you, we are going to make an offer. During the offer phase is when we're collecting information on the comparable houses to the one that you've identified. And and we are working towards getting this house that you've identified under contract. And once your house is under contract, then we go into a due diligence phase. This is when you're doing your home inspection, your inspection on any other systems or part of the house that you'd like to have inspected. We're negotiating repairs back and forth if we need to. During this phase, we're also working on your financing with your lender if you are using a mortgage lender. We're doing the appraisals, we're doing all kinds of stuff to make sure that your contract is as smooth as possible. And then we get to what's called the clear to close. And once we get the clear to close from the lender, if you are using a lender, then we are smooth sailing all the way to the closing table. Then once we get to the closing table, we're signing some documents, and guess what? You are the new owner of this amazing house in North Georgia. All right, so now that we've gone through all of the steps again about buying a house in North Georgia, what I want to do next is I want to give you a gift. Basically what I've done is I've taken all the steps that we've talked about in these videos and I put them into what's called a buyer checklist or a buyer roadmap. And whether you use me or whether you use another agent to buy your house in North Georgia, I think this would be a valuable resource for you to make sure you understand the process. So I'm going to leave a link in the description for you to download the buyer's roadmap, and hopefully that will be a great resource for you to understand the process of buying your house in North Georgia. All right, so next I want to talk about a couple of the common questions that I get from buyers that are looking to move to North Georgia. So a common scenario that happens sometimes is I have someone that comes into town, they say, hey, I'm going to be in town for the weekend, and maybe I'm looking at buying in a year or so, but I want to go see these 5 or 6 houses. And if your timeline is longer than somewhere around 60 to 90 days, going to look at houses first is probably not the best idea. And you might ask, well, why not? The quick answer is that the market changes daily. Interest rates change every day, house prices change every day, houses go under contract every day. So if your purchase is sometime longer than about 60 to 90 days, then I think the best thing for you to do would be to drive around and go to that step 1, which is explore North Georgia, take a look at some different areas and decide where you want to live. All right, so another common question I get is, why do I need to have a pre-approval, or why do I need to send a proof of funds letter if I'm paying cash before we go see houses? This is a great question, and it's definitely not because I want to make you do something that doesn't make any sense for you. And the reason why I ask for a pre-approval letter or proof of funds first is so that we can have a very good idea of what your budget is for your eventual purchase in North Georgia. All right, so question number 3 is, why do I need to sign a buyer brokerage agreement before I go look at houses with you? That is a great question, and based on some recent rule changes coming from the Department of Justice and the National Association of Realtors, all realtors are going to have a buyer brokerage agreement signed prior to showing houses. Hey, I didn't make the rules. Those are just the new rules that have come out, and I have to make sure that I follow the rules to make sure that we have a great experience. So we've got to have that buyer brokerage agreement signed, and then we can go see some houses. Okay, everybody, this is a long series. Please tell me what you thought. I know we covered a lot of content in these 3 videos, so tell me what you thought in the comments. As always, if you are thinking about moving to North Georgia, or if you're curious about the area, please reach out. My contact info is on the screen, and we'll see you on the next video.